In the winter of 1570, the city of Novgorod burned, not by the hand of foreign invaders, but by command of its own ruler. Citizens were dragged from their homes, bound in ropes, and marched to the frozen Volkhov River. Some were beaten until their limbs shattered. Others were tied in sacks, with dogs and cats sewn inside, then hurled beneath the ice. The air reeked of charred flesh and frozen blood. Children screamed, priests were gagged with scripture, and high above it all, from the bell tower of St. Sophia, a man watched, cloaked in black, face expressionless. Ivan IV, Tsar of all Russia. To history, he is known as Ivan the Terrible. But terrible doesn't mean incompetent. It means something far worse, awe-inspiring, in his cruelty. Ivan IV was born into chaos. In 1530, he entered the world as the grandson of Ivan the Great, heir to a vast but fractured empire. By age 3, he was crowned Grand Prince of Moscow. By age 8, he was an orphan. His father died of an infected abscess. His mother, Elena Glinskaya, the power behind the throne, was poisoned most likely by the boyars, Russia's scheming noble class. Left alone in the royal court, Ivan lived not like a prince, but like a prisoner. He wandered the halls of the Kremlin, half-starved and covered in filth. The boyars who were supposed to protect him beat him for sport. They murdered his pets. They mocked him as he clutched holy books in the dark, whispering prayers to a god that never answered. By the age of 13, Ivan had learned a truth that would shape the rest of his life. No one is loyal, everyone is expendable, and mercy is weakness. So when the time came, he responded not with forgiveness, but with fire. At 13 years old, Ivan ordered his first execution. A boyar named Prince Andrei Shuisky was dragged from his seat and thrown to a pack of starving hunting dogs. Ivan watched. He did not flinch. At age 16, Ivan did something no Russian ruler had done before. He crowned himself Tsar, not prince, not regent, but Caesar, the absolute ruler ordained by God, beyond mortal challenge. And for a time, he ruled well. Even modernized Russia's legal code. He strengthened the military, opened foreign trade, and expanded the empire. He married a noblewoman named Anastasia Romanovna, his first and only true love. Under her influence, Ivan was patient, humane. But goodness, in Ivan, was a fragile thing. In 1560, Anastasia fell violently ill. She convulsed for days before dying in agony. Ivan was inconsolable, and then furious. He accused his advisors of poisoning her. He saw treason in every glance, betrayal in every silence. Something inside him snapped. The reformer died with Anastasia. What rose in his place was something else entirely. He shaved his head and donned monastic robes. He walked among corpses and muttered prayers to the dead. Then he founded a secret police force, an army of black-cloaked riders who answered only to him. They were called the Oprishniki. Their symbol, a severed dog's head and a broom, to sniff out traitors and sweep them from Russia. Their purpose, terror. And their methods were just beginning. The Oprishniki were not soldiers. They were instruments, extensions of Ivan's paranoia. They rode black horses through villages, dressed in long robes like monks, but carrying whips, axes, and boiling oil. They held executions in public squares and made sure the children watched. Entire families were rounded up on suspicion of disloyalty. Men were flayed alive. Women were stripped, violated, and paraded through the streets. Children were drowned, not with malice, but with cold bureaucratic efficiency. In one infamous case, the Oprishniki suspected a nobleman of treason. They invited him to a banquet, where he was forced to watch his wife raped and murdered. When he wept, they laughed. When he screamed, They gouged out his eyes and left him to crawl blind through the blood-slicked floor. They turned execution into ritual. Death became theatre. And always at the center of it all was Ivan. He watched, he directed, he wept as he killed, and claimed it was penance. To him, Russia was his body, and he was purging it of disease, one limb at a time. In 1570, Ivan turned his gaze to Novgorod, one of Russia's oldest cities and a symbol of independence. He had received word, unproven, whispered, that the city's leaders were plotting to defect to Poland. To Ivan, no evidence was needed. Suspicion was guilt, so he rode for Novgorod, with 1,500 oprichniki behind him. For 5 weeks, the city became a hellscape. Thousands were chained together and driven onto the frozen Volkhov River, where the ice was smashed beneath their feet. Entire families drowned together, their screams muffled by snow and the crush of bodies. Children were thrown from bell towers. Nuns were stripped and beaten with iron rods. Priests were tied to sleds and dragged until their flesh tore from their bones. The oprichniki set fire to every district. Smoke blotted out the sun. The stench of death seeped into the stones. And still, Ivan watched. From a tower in St. Sophia Cathedral, he observed the carnage with dead eyes and folded hands, as if attending a sermon. He ordered executions by day and held banquets by night, raising goblets over a city of corpses. Estimates vary, but by the end, as many as 60,000 people had died. Novgorod never recovered. By the late 1570s, Ivan had lost almost everything. His health was failing. His empire was crumbling under famine, plague, and paranoia, and his madness had no limits left to cross. In 1581, during a heated argument, Ivan struck his pregnant daughter-in-law for wearing immodest clothing, causing her to miscarry. His son, Ivan Ivanovich, his heir, his only real hope for a legacy, confronted him. The Tsar flew into a rage. He grabbed his iron-tipped staff and drove it into his son's skull. Ivan Ivanovich collapsed, blood pooling beneath him. He died within days. Witnesses say Ivan the Terrible held his son's lifeless body in his arms and wept, not as a ruler, not as a father, but as a man who realized too late that he had destroyed his own future. In 1584, Ivan died suddenly while playing chess. Some say it was poison, others say it was syphilis or stroke. Whatever the cause, when they dug up his remains centuries later, they found high levels of mercury in his bones. Was it medication or murder? Either way, Russia had no strong heir. Ivan's brutal reign left behind a power vacuum that plunged the country into a brutal civil war known as the Time of Troubles. His dynasty died with him, but his shadow lingered. Ivan the Terrible was not a madman from the beginning. He was made by isolation, by betrayal, by grief. But he chose, again and again, to answer pain with cruelty and doubt with death. He ruled through terror, and in doing so became a monster even his enemies could not have imagined. Some rulers die and are forgotten. Ivan left behind a country scourged, broken and bleeding, and a name etched in blood.